Hello, everyone. I wanted to briefly go over just some of the things that were said in the Module 4 discussion about the films that we looked at. This is from Michael, who said the looming threat of death overcomes any past issues one has had with the person because there's no reason to maintain such enmity because they will die sooner than later. I mean, that seems to me a very rational, plausible thing to say, and I think that might be the key to that scene, actually, thinking about it. That is, if I remember the film, it's been a long time since I watched the film as a whole, but the man has lived a kind of a questionable life insofar as how he's treated people and whether he's been selfish and things like that in the way that he's lived. But the people around him uh, seem to be able to overcome that. And it's a perfectly yes. I think it's very helpful. And I think that it's probably very realistic, true, too. I mean, the truth is that our relationships with people are rarely clear. And I'm hard put to think of any relationship of any significance that I have that doesn't have unresolved issues. But in the context of a person's death, I suppose it is natural to put those things aside. I mean, out of delicacy or decency or love. So I think that's Michael is very good comment, very helpful comment in putting that scene in context. This is from Erica, who said it's hard not to obsess over the things you should have done but didn't. And that is obviously in reference to the Magnolia death scene. Yes, and I think that is the perhaps the key to this scene that this man is facing a reckoning in his death. That is not the kind of scene, obviously, from the barbarian invasions, where he's surrounded by people who are committed to love. He's surrounded by no one really, except for this poor nurse's aide who's there to take care of him. I don't know. When we're looking at death, are we thinking about celebrating and cherishing the love relationships we've had, the way we've lived our lives, or are we thinking about our mistakes? This man is obviously doing the latter. I'm not saying that everyone does, but and whether Eric also sort of implies that maybe we should get over these things. Maybe we should get over our errors and our regrets and our guilt, and that would be the proper way to go. But that maybe isn't so easy to do. This is from Nayo. He said, death is the most optimal time for someone to reflect on the life that they lived and how they enjoyed it, or how it could have been changed. I was struck here by the questionableness of that. I mean, again, it's a perfectly reasonable proposition that death is the time, or dying, or when you're facing death, that it is the proper time, as she says, the optimal time to reflect on our lives. But I wonder about that. I don't have extensive experience with what people say and how they think at this time. But I wonder if that is actually the best time. I don't know. That is, are we thinking more clearly? Is there anything definitive about the way that we regard our lives at the end? Does it give it any more validity than any other time? I suppose it's unclear, but it's an interesting proposition. This is from Michael C., who said the barbarian invasions also had a reality piece in it with the daughter. She seemed so upset that he was dying, but was also mad at him for some reason. I thought this was a good piece because as humans, we don't always make the best choices. And the main character most likely messed up with his daughter somewhere. Even if he wasn't the best, I think you would expect your family to surround you with their love in your last moments. I think this goes back to the other Michael's comment that perhaps all the people around him had much more to say to him. And were he not ill, were he not, about to die, perhaps the things that they said to him would have been more complex, more ambivalent. And the daughter is expressing some ambivalence there, perhaps in what Michael detects as anger. I think that that's pretty common. That is, when people die who are close to us, at least my own experience is that the response is not clear cut. It's complex, and anger with them, frustration with them, and maybe part of the anger is that since they are going away forever, there's no chance to resolve these things. Finally, from Claire, to be able to be surrounded by those most important and close to you before you die, to me is genuine, and to have them as your last impression before you die is something special. I think that that's a characterization of the the first scene from the barbarian invasions, and I couldn't possibly dispute this. Um, what caught me here is the reference to the last impression before you die. It's it raises so many troubling issues about truth and about the way that we regard our lives, and about really the question raised earlier about what is the best time to reflect on your life and the way you've lived. Is it at the very end when things are getting, I would imagine, fairly scary and dramatic? And the last impression is exactly that. Certainly, we're interested in our last impressions of our lives. That's kind of what this whole module is about in these death scenes. But there's a question in my mind about whether the last impression is the most truthful or most meaningful impression, or whether it's just the last impression. We're constantly changing our minds about important things in life, and it's hard to settle on what the truth is. And sometimes I think we don't have the truth. We just have what we happen to have thought last. So I don't know. But interesting comments on these films, and really quite helpful to me, putting things in perspective, getting other people's